1. Hey all, I'm a 25-year-old woman in Scotland, and last year I moved into my first flat, or apartment for the Americans. Everything is quite good here except for my next-door neighbor, who has taken a dislike to me on account of the fact that I smoke weed sometimes. She asked if I could stop smoking it in my living room because she said she could smell it in hers. I was very embarrassed and apologized because I didn't expect her to be able to smell it. I don't smoke in my living room anymore, and she hasn't said anything else, so I assume it's okay, but it has created some tension, and we don't say hello or speak to each other at all. This is all fine, I just keep to myself. She actually isn't the neighbor I'm having trouble with, but I think she might be involved. My downstairs neighbor is a single man in his late 70s. He is very, very noisy, and he talks badly about basically everyone on the street, especially my next-door neighbor. He seemed to really dislike her and her partner. He said they've been living there 5 years and he has never spoken to them. I have just tried to be nice and polite, but it can be difficult, as he wants to stand outside for hours even when it's raining, windy, and even snowing. I am a pretty introverted person, and this can be really uncomfortable and sometimes frustrating for me, so I've tried to avoid him as much as possible. He does pretty annoying things, like emptying his bird's nest into my garden, but I've just tried to ignore it. No point in making a big stink over feathers and bird poo, but still. I think he should empty the mess into his own garden, or even, and this is revolutionary, the bin. He also sprinkles grit all up the side where my garden meets his to kill the weeds, but it's killed everything. The grass is completely gone now, and it looks really bad, but again, it just doesn't seem like a big enough problem to make a big deal about. He tells stories that he's already told multiple times, and at first, I thought he was just lonely, but over time these stories have become quite disturbing. He tells a story about his 2 daughters, who he hasn't had contact with since they were young teens. I wonder why. Being in the bath together and him telling them to put their pants on in the bath so he could come in and wash their hair. I don't think the fact this happened is inherently strange, but why is he telling a young woman he barely knows about this? The other story that upsets me is about a Shetland sheepdog he had with that family. He said that the dog's dew claws were very sharp, so he took it out back and tied it to a tree so it couldn't run away, and then pulled out the dew claws with pliers. I was visibly disturbed by this and had no idea what to say, so I just told him I was cooking, and I had to go back upstairs to check on my food. This neighbor of mine is, how we would say in Scotland, very orange. This means he is a die-hard Protestant. He supports football teams associated with the religion, has Protestant tattoos all over his arms, and listens to music associated with the religion as well. This wouldn't bother me at all, since I really couldn't care less about any religion, but he frequently talks about how much he hates Catholics, and I was raised Catholic. Just a side note in case anyone isn't familiar with how religion works in Scotland, Protestants and Catholics have a very long, bloody history of hate and violence against one another. It is also heavily influenced by the 2 football teams that represented each religion in the past. The Protestant team, Rangers, and the Catholic team, Celtic. I'm really worried about him finding out about my background because he told a story of how he got someone fired from their job for wearing a crucifix around his neck. He called this man a Fenian Bee, which is essentially a slur against Irish Catholics. It's very disturbing. Lately, I noticed he wasn't bothering me as much, and it got to the point where it seemed like he was the one avoiding me. Then one day, I noticed he was chatting with my next-door neighbor, and it became very frequent to the point where she asked him to watch her 2-year-old son for an hour one day. Now, you don't just leave your toddler with anybody, so she obviously trusts him, and they have become quite close. I didn't think too much of it at the time, but for the past few weeks my dog has been really sick. He's throwing up a lot and has a bad toilet, which is uncommon with him, because he's notorious for eating anything he can find outside, but he's never been sick for this long before. Obviously, I decided that he couldn't go out on his own anymore, because the only time I'm not watching him is when he's in the garden, so I thought that must be where he's eating things. I actually caught him eating something last week, and when I went to check, I discovered hundreds of tiny chicken bones. These are really dangerous for dogs to eat, so I picked them all out of the grass and binned them. The next day, I caught my dog eating something again and again. I found a load of chicken bones sprinkled all around the garden. I live next to a lane that people walk up and down all day, so I decided to put a camera at my bedroom window to see who was throwing these bones in my garden. When I checked it out, I discovered it was my downstairs neighbor throwing the bones. I decided to mention to him that my dog was really sick because of the chicken bones, and I wasn't sure who was doing this, just to see what he would say. He told me that an old man walks through the lane, eats chicken every day, so it must be him. I didn't even know what to say to that, but I hoped by mentioning it was making the dog sick he would stop. Unfortunately, I have found chicken bones in my garden every day since then. It's to the point where I think he's doing it deliberately now, but I have no idea why. I think it's because he's either friends with my next-door neighbor and dislikes me now, or maybe he somehow found out I was raised Catholic. I seriously don't know any other reason he would be doing this to me, but I'm really worried for my dog's health and safety. I don't know what else to do. I really don't like confrontation, and I don't want to make the situation worse in any way, but it's such a bad situation. I have to go out every morning and pick up all the chicken bones before I can let my dog out, and I don't get them all of the time, so he's getting sick some days. I'm just deflated from this situation. I don't get why he's trying to make my dog sick. It's not his fault that I'm antisocial and can't make friends with the neighbors, and he doesn't deserve to be harmed because a strange old man has an unspoken problem with me. Hellfreezer's note, you're not required to make friends with the neighbors. I have lived in the house I'm in all my life, and I'll occasionally say a polite hello to my neighbors, but that's about it. Now, there is a little bit of a problem with the fact that they obviously know you smoke weed, and that's not legal in Scotland currently. I would suggest you drop the weed and just start buying CBD pens, which are legal. Obviously, in the UK, they won't have THC in them, but it is a legal alternative for you, and if you do have to take action against your neighbors at some point, you would legally be untouchable, because they can accuse you of whatever they want. They'd have to prove it. Now, the common thing in this situation is camera, and that's good advice. If you can get footage or pictures of him dumping the chicken bones, then you can do one of two things. Call the police, contact your landlord. If you rent from a local council, contact a local council. I don't think they'd take very kindly to somebody antagonizing you like this, nor littering on your property. Or you could take the more subtle approach and slip some pictures under his door, proving that you know it was him that did it. Personally, I'd go the more legal route. I understand you're concerned about his reaction, but the fact is, he's trying to harm your dog. And that's bad enough, but it could escalate from there, and he could try to harm you. The fact of the matter is, he's got old man brain. There's no point trying to reason with him. He's just like some old folks who really just hate the world around him and want everyone to be as miserable as they are. Thankfully, not all older people are like that. 2. So I've been renting my house for 5 years. I get along with all the neighbors. We all hang out and have a good time, except for one of my next-door neighbors. They've always been insane. When we moved in, the landlord warned us about them. It's 7 people in this small 3-bedroom home. The grandma and the grandpa, her 2 sons, and then one of the son's wife and 2 sons, who are probably like 12 and 16. The day we moved in, they knocked on my door and said they've been parking their 3rd car in front of our house for 25 years, and we need to let them do that. How about no? I didn't want any drama with the new neighbors, so I did. For almost 5 years, I made sure there was a spot for them and have tried to be cordial. I have had some good convos with the grandma, and that's about it. Well, they got rid of that 3rd car, so I decided to start parking there. I have a huge tree in my yard, and birds live in it and poop on my car. That's the only spot that's not under the tree, and it's in front of my house. Well, I guess this ticked them off. How dare I park in front of my own house, even though they don't need the spot? So they started parking right on my butt, so I couldn't even open my hatchback. This was going on for weeks. It was my birthday. I just got home, and there was no room to park in front of my own house because they were inching further and further over to anger me. One of their sons was outside, so I asked him to get whoever drives this car. The grandma and dad came out, and I asked why they were parking all up on me, and they said, "Because we can." I said, "Don't you want to be a nice, neighborly, normal person?" And they kept being rude, saying no, and we don't have to. So I called the dad a bitch, Damn right. I said, what kind of grown man harasses a young mother of 2 little kids who's just trying to park in front of their house? Especially after I let you park there for 5 years and didn't complain. I got into an argument with him being rude. I said, fine. Then whenever you leave, I'll park in front of your house every day. I work from home. He said, then I'll never move it again. It's been a month and he hasn't driven his car. He has his wife driving him everywhere. Every time I've been outside, they've come out and stared at me, waiting for me to say something about them not moving their car. But I kept ignoring them. Then yesterday, I come home and the wife is in my yard cutting plants down. Granted, they were just mulberry bushes that I didn't plant, but they were in my yard. As I pulled up, she yells to her son, "Grab me the sharper shears, these aren't working good." I got out of my car and I said, "Get off my property. You can't come in my yard and cut things down." She said they were growing into her yard over the fence, and I said, "Then cut what's in your yard." Mind you, they have a huge bush that's literally touching my window. This bush they cut was maybe 2 leaves hanging over the fence. They also had 3 feet grass in their own yard. The county has had to come out multiple times for their dirty pool because of mosquitoes. Like they don't care about landscaping. I said, in what world is that okay? Your husband hasn't driven his car in a month to get back at me, and you think you can come in my yard and start cutting things down? I said, maybe if your husband wasn't such a pussy bitch passenger princess, I wouldn't mind. Like, the entitlement is insane. They then said they can do whatever they want because I rent and they own. I said, no, you live with your mom at 45 years old. They kept calling me a teenager. I'm 32, but thanks for the compliment. The skincare is skin-caring. I literally have an almost 10-year-old son. It's just the entitlement that ticks me off to the extreme. I garden, I'm growing wildflowers and berry bushes. What if they cut something that I was growing purposely? I want you to just imagine you have a beef with a neighbor for months, and you come home and find they're on your property cutting stuff down. Absolutely insane. I did call them a bunch of names because I'm so fed up with them. The whole neighborhood hates them because of their entitlement and pettiness. They think because they own and have been here for 25 years, aka never moved out of mommy's house, they own the block. It's ridiculous. I should have called the cops immediately, but I don't really believe in calling cops on people and never have before. I don't know what to do. Call the cops. I'm so sick of them. Call the cops. My landlord is on my side and said if they run us out, he will forgo all background checks and find the worst people possible to move in. We are friends with all of our other neighbors. We help each other. We have cookouts and celebrations. The only thing I don't like about this neighborhood is them and the mosquitoes their dirty pool brings. Hellfreezer's note, if they want to be petty, then just report them for everything they're doing wrong. The tall grass, well, that's got to be a violation, report that. The mosquitoes, definitely a health violation, report that. They park in front of your driveway, have them towed. They shouldn't be there, it's in front of your house. Come into your garden damaging property, which is what they did, call the cops. You pay your taxes like anyone else. When there's trouble, you have a right to call the cops. 3. I need advice on how to handle this woman. I live in Illinois, in the home I inherited from my parents, and unfortunately, I inherited their terrible neighbor Nancy, too. My parents are, or were, the kind of people who would give the clothes off their back to someone. They'd never harbor any ill will toward anyone. When my mom said this neighbor was trouble, I knew it had to be bad. I've lived in the house for a year, and thankfully, Negative Nancy was in Hawaii for at least half that time, so I never really encountered her. I've spoken to her cordially 2 or 3 times in the last couple of weeks. 2 days ago, I got a text from another neighbor telling me that Negative Nancy sent her this huge text about my identity. The concern over the unknown flag on my flagpole. Chicago Cubs. The weeds coming from under our shared fence from my yard. There are 0, and blaming my cat for crapping in her yard and the ridiculous cleanup she has to do. The neighborhood has a lot of huge raccoons, and they constantly poop in our yards. I have a lovely, well-kept yard and garden, and I recently got a few quail. My great-grandpa raised them, and I wanted to carry on the family tradition. I am all about permaculture principles. and edible landscaping, attracting pollinators and living as closely to the land as possible. My yard is a certified wildlife habitat, and I refuse to use chemicals of any kind in my yard. Negative Nancy told my other neighbor that she has to buy spray to deal with the weeds that creep into her yard from mine. So yesterday I bought a tasteful little sign to put near my quail and garden that says, "No spray zone due to health risks. Do not spray any chemicals, including pesticides and herbicides, in this area." It's on the north side of my yard, which is the side she's on. Not 20 minutes ago I saw her spraying "Weed Begone" on my side of the fence. The other neighbor told me she attempted to bully the previous owners of the house into taking down the 100-year-old beautiful maple tree in the front yard because she doesn't like the helicopters. She was locked in a 2-year lawsuit with the school district over improvements to the small piece of land that she lives on, that borders the school. She does not know about the quail, and I've installed a new ring camera to not only monitor their well-being, but to see if she attempts to look into the enclosure or come into my backyard. I fully expect her to try to turn me into the city, even though those quail make zero noise. If I catch her spraying in my yard again, I need to know how to handle it, aside from giving her the business, which I absolutely will do. I need advice on how to make this woman's life hell, because I know she's unhinged and this is going to escalate. I do not want to play nice. Please give me ideas on what to do that are legal. But she needs to learn a lesson. Everyone in the neighborhood loves and respects each other, but no one can stand her because she's an incessant bully. I appreciate y'all. 4. Hi, thank you for listening to my post. I could really use some advice. I got married in November and moved into a new apartment with my husband. We've both never lived in an apartment, but found this one appealing because we were told that their goal was to fill the community with young families. However, when we finally got the keys, we learned that our neighbors were several rowdy college students. This wasn't a problem for us because we met some other students in the building who were extremely sweet and friendly. However, I was in for a rude awakening because things got really bad after the first night. My husband works remote and I work as an elementary school teacher. We have a little doggo as well. The first couple of nights, we heard these students screaming off their balcony, coughing up a storm and blasting music. We looked at the time and it was 10:30 p.m. The quiet hours start at 10 p.m., but we thought it would end soon, so we didn't bother knocking on their door. The music was shaking our bedroom wall, it reeked of weed, and they were still yelling and laughing super loud by 12 a.m. I tried my best not to be a Karen when I knocked on their door. I just told them that I was their neighbor and their music was shaking our bedroom. I asked if they could be a little more quiet, and they smiled at me and agreed. I went back to the bedroom and nothing changed. We still tried to be kind and knocked again later. This went on for several nights. They would invite friends over and those friends would stay over all week. There is a no smoking policy, but they would smoke so much weed. We can smell it in our apartment in 3 different rooms. We installed a ring camera for packages and they would flip us off. We ended up capturing a lot of video evidence of them pretending to steal our packages, flipping us off, throwing vapes, etc. I contacted management many times and they spoke to the tenants, yet nothing was resolved. The reason why I'm making this post is because we are now in June and not much has changed. They don't harass us through the ring camera anymore, but they still yell, blast music, and smoke. If you want to smoke, that's fine. You do you. But this apartment has a no smoking policy, and it's making my apartment smell bad. We bought seals for our windows because they've been smoking on their balcony too, and it comes into our room. Now we can't open the windows and enjoy fresh air because of the seals. I just keep contacting management, and they say they're doing what they can, and I want to believe them. They're not. I'm just tired of snitching on these kids and constantly confronting them. I just want to sleep at a reasonable time, not have to smell weed, and I want them to stop scaring the crap out of my dog. What do I do? Am I being too much? Nope. Should I just sit tight until the lease is up? I know apartments are not going to be super quiet, I get that. I just think this is a bit much. Please help, and thank you all for listening to this. Hellfreezer's note, well, you need to stop contacting your apartment manager, or rather, stop contacting only the apartment manager, and start contacting the cops. For the noise violations, absolutely. I'm not sure what the laws are like where you live, but If weed's not legal where you live, they'll get in trouble for that too, and they should if they're being dicks about it. I don't begrudge people the right to smoke a little weed, but, I expect a little courtesy. Although it does stink. The only other thing I can think of is, as you do have multiple scraps of video evidence, and you have reports you've made to the management of the building, look through your correspondence and see if you have anything in writing where they claim it's going to be this nice, peaceful, quiet place that they're renting only to families in. Because if you do, and that's not what you've been given, that would constitute as them violating your lease agreement, and you might be able to use that to get out of it. Might be worth talking to a lawyer to see if there's enough there to get the ball rolling so you can get into a better place, hopefully a quieter place sooner. 5. Some background on my apartment. I live in a 100-year-old single-family home in rural Minnesota that was shoddily converted to 5 apartments at some point. I signed the lease unseen. Mistake. I wear earplugs to sleep because I can hear sounds outside my apartment as if they're inside my apartment. My apartment takes up the front side of the weirdly shaped house and runs parallel to the hallway, so I hear absolutely everything in the hallway. And the door at the end of the hallway goes outside to a very small set of steps. The landing can fit maybe 3 people standing up. That leads to our little parking lot. My bedroom window faces these steps, and I have to keep my curtains closed at all times because I've seen people peering in before. An older woman moved in across the hall about 2 months ago when I had already been living here for a few months. She started smoking on the steps right outside my bedroom window, which was frustrating because I have no AC and was using that window to let air into my room. It's the only window in that room. I didn't make a fuss about it at the time because she's really sweet and old and smokes at least a pack a day, so I didn't want her to have to walk up and down the steps to smoke further away. And I've been dealing with not being able to open my window. I have had to tell her not to leave the hallway door open while she smokes in the doorway because the hallway was starting to reek, and I couldn't figure out why the smell was so strong until I saw her out there with the door wide open. Fast forward to this week. I think an old man has moved in with her, and I discovered this morning that he has now set up a folding chair less than 6 inches from my window to smoke. He set his coffee on my windowsill, rude. He woke me up yesterday on my day off talking to my neighbor loudly. I can hear every word of their conversation because my room is very small, and my bed has to be close to the window. And I already wear earplugs to sleep because the door to the step shuts loudly when slammed. And my neighbor doesn't try to close it quietly. I got a little passive-aggressive yesterday morning and played music on full volume on my phone and left it by the window while I did chores. I kept the window closed because I wanted to see if they could hear it as clearly as I could hear the voices inside. I don't think it worked, and felt bad about it all day because I overthink things due to OCD. They also woke me up at 8 a.m., and I feel like maybe that's too late in the day for me to be so annoyed. But this morning, they did the same thing, and I couldn't snooze before work like I usually do. I put clothes on and walked outside to politely confront the old man. He set up his chair so it blocks the steps entirely. I told him that my bedroom window is right there and that he and the neighbor have been waking me up in the mornings because I can hear everything outside. He said that he just goes out there to smoke and that he'll be quiet from now on. But I don't trust that at all, and he didn't seem to see any problem in sitting there, even though I use the steps to get to my car. And just to get in and out of the building in general. If I go out while he's there, he'll have to fold up his chair and stand to the side to let me through. I just really can't tell if I'm blowing things out of proportion in my mind, because this ticks me off so much that I've been fixating on it throughout the day. Like I said, I have OCD, but I don't think Minnesota prohibits smoking outside a residence, and I don't think my lease does either. I've considered pointing a fan out the window for airflow and playing music on my windowsill from a speaker in the mornings to deter them from hanging out there. Would that just make things worse? I don't know. For more context, I have no friends or family in this state. I just moved here for a job that only lasts until December. And I'm definitely moving at the end of my lease in January. I can't tell if I'm going crazy from the loneliness or if this is a normal thing to be angry about. Hellfreezer's note, it's definitely a normal thing to be angry about. As human beings, we need sleep. I think oftentimes people underestimate how much sleep the human body needs, and if it goes on for an extended period of time, it can have all sorts of effects on your mood and how you deal with problems in life in general. So no, they're disrupting your sleep, they're disrupting the peace in the home that you pay for, so it's not unreasonable. I mean, good for the old lady that she's getting digged down by this guy, but is he paying rent there, or has he just moved in with her? He doesn't have a right to block the steps. Not only is that a fire hazard in an emergency, you'd struggle to get out, it's required for the basic function of entry and exit to the building. That's going to be against code somewhere, surely. Unfortunately, I think you are right. I did take a cursory look at the healthstate.minnesota.us at the Clean Air Act. And as long as it's not an enclosed space, yeah, they can smoke and vape outside, even if they're near your window, unfortunately. However, it's possible that the local council in your area might have a specific ordinance that prevents it. Might be worth looking into. Worst case scenario, they'll tell you no. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Naughty Neighbours, episode 48. Big thanks to everyone who allowed me to use their stories. If you'd like to support the channel, then you could hit the like button. You could also subscribe. And if you'd like to support the channel monetarily, then my Patreon is available. There's a link to that in the description. Support me there for $1 or more a month, and you get early access to the videos. There's also a link to my merchandise store. Okay, that's the business done. Let's move on to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is... And this one comes thanks to Newcomb via the Discord. And the question is, do you know anyone who doesn't use the internet? That's a good question. I don't actually know anyone because most of the people I talk to are on the internet. But let me know what you think. What do you know? In a comment below. And if you feel comfortable, maybe share why they don't use the internet. It's a valid choice. Some people still don't have TVs. And that's all fine and good. Okay, before we go, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And this one came from Naughty Neighbours 47, and it was, have you ever felt the universe was trying to give you a sign? And today's answer comes from Emerald Angel. Occasionally, but I don't realize it until afterwards. Had a moment when my car made an off sound, then it went away. It was so small I didn't think much on it. Happened one more time, and I had a thought that maybe I should check it. But there was no check engine signal on my car. Sure enough, that weekend my car wouldn't start and I was stuck at a Whataburger parking lot. I guess the universe took pity because the manager of the restaurant had a mechanic roommate. He's now our go-to mechanic. Well, that worked out quite well, and thank you very much for your answer, Emerald Angel. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.